We're on the phone today with filmmaker Sean McNamara, and he has a new film out. It's called The King's Daughter, in theaters now. Hey, Sean, how's it going today?
Very good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining me.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know you've got a lot going on these days, and the new film, The King's Daughter. Can you tell the listeners about the new film?
Absolutely. Well, The King's Daughter stars Pierce Brosnan, and it's about King Louis XIV's quest for immortality in the 17th century. And he captures a mermaid's life force, and he meets his daughter that he hasn't met in 18 years. And they discover that this mermaid has a life force, and if they can capture the life force, King Louis can live forever. So it's a fantasy film based on a Vonda McIntyre book she wrote called The Moon and the Sun.
Excellent. Yeah, quite the cast in the film. You mentioned Pierce Brosnan, and I know Julie Andrews involved, and the film, it's in theaters now, but I've read that it's gone on quite the journey here. Film's been in the works for various forms here, dating back quite a few years, it seems.
Yeah, it's just, we had to get the visual effects right, and we wanted a theatrical release for it. And then COVID hit, and, so there's so many things that, push it back. It would have definitely been out a few years ago if a lot of things like COVID didn't come in and so forth.
Well, it's great. It's in theaters now. And Sean, I wanted to ask you how you feel about kind of the setup we have now with some films. Some of them are only in theaters, some available streaming the same day. Do you think that hurts movies, like The King's Daughter, where, maybe it probably would add something to the film if you were able to experience on the big screen?
Yeah, well, I mean, as a filmmaker, I love going to the movies, to the theater, because I like to see it big. I like to see it how it was intended. So I think there's always going to be an audience for that. I think COVID is just making, things a little crazy, and people want to be safe, and they should be. But I think there's, once COVID goes away, I think people will be back in droves to the theater, and then it'll eventually go to, PVOD, VOD, and television, and airplanes, and then, I like to see movies again. I'll be on an airplane and, see a movie I watched 10 years ago. And I'm always happy to see it, even if if it's a big Steven Spielberg film. I'd love to watch it again. But I think theater right now is just because of COVID. It's just everybody had to back off a little bit. But I think the audience yearning as a group to go and experience a movie together will never go away.
Excellent. Again, The King's Daughter is out now. And Sean, I know you've been making movies and working in TV for a long time, and you've been behind a lot of stuff that were, favorites of a lot of kids growing up. What is it that made you kind of gravitate towards more of the family-friendly sort of projects?
I think it was the kind of films I grew up on. I grew up in the, the 70s and the 80s, and there were those big magical films of Steven Spielberg, and there were, they were just bigger than life and fun, and it took you on adventures all over the world. So I just tended to make films that I liked growing up with, and just continue to go on and make those.
And it definitely seems like The King's Daughter, one of those films. A lot of stuff going on with the film, and it's definitely big budget and very kind of reminiscent of, like a Never-Ending Story or, some of these kind of fantasy films that we grew up with.
I mean, well, yeah, it is a fantasy film that we grew up with. That's the whole idea of it. And I mean, I grew up on films that I just loved, I don't know, even Free Willy, when there's a regular family that grows up around an extraordinary circumstance. I love that, and I love to watch what that is. But I also grew up on the Bond films where they would take you someplace you'd never been before and probably could never have gotten to. And so that's why, when I read the original book, The Moon and the Sun, and it was at Versailles, I was like, gosh, I always wanted to go there. And so then we were able to do that with this film.
Sean, I got to ask you, your memories of making Three Ninjas, High Noon at Mega Mountain. I know that's one of my favorites, and one of the times you got to work with the great Jim Varney as well.
My gosh, Jim Varney was one of the most consummate actors I ever knew. Nobody knew the level of talent that guy had. He put on that character that Vern, when he was doing his own movies. But that was a fun family film. Disney did the first one, and I think I did that one for TriStar. And it's just little kids being able to kick some butt, and it was fun. And Jim Varney was just I did 2 or 3 films with him, and he was just a great actor and a good man.
Well, again, The King's Daughter is out now, but I know you're always working on stuff. Is there something maybe coming up we should be looking out for?
I've got a few coming out. I got Reagan coming out, and I got On a Wing and a Prayer coming out from MGM, and those will be coming out toward August of 2022.
Excellent. Sean, thanks again for your time. The King's Daughter looks great, and I'm glad it's finally out and in theaters, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, take care.
And again, that was filmmaker Sean McNamara, and his new film, The King's Daughter, is in theaters now.